Okay, we're at the end of Loon Sprint 3, which is the feature freeze point. This was a fork sprint from 724 to 811. Actually, it was 3 weeks, wasn't it? Platform. We'll get started on what we did in the platform, starting with Jordan.
Yeah, so starting at the beginning of the sprint, there wasn't that much in the platform sprint, but a lot of stuff got added from bugs that came up and things that needed to be fixed before the end of release. So two things that were in it were the first two, linearizability verification for distributed primitives, which I'll actually demo after this, and primitive throughput tests, which I ran lots of benchmarks on the bare metal cluster, and it did really well, way better than before the atomics upgrade. And then various regressions. So there was a performance regression in how we manage RAF sessions after the atomics upgrade, fixing issues with the NetE messaging protocol, and then I actually ran into some bugs. I actually ran into this cryo bug that seems to have been around for a couple of years, and managed to get it be able to reproduce it pretty consistently, and so I fixed that. And then we have a couple of issues still in review. They're the larger issues. So one of the big issues we've had for a while, one of the big bugs we've had for a while now is the flow rule store losing flow rules. So started to take that on in the sprint because we needed to get it done before the end of release, and just in case new features needed to get in. So there's a big patch in review right now for that, and John is looking at it, and that'll go into the next sprint. And then there's also some work that's being done for the dynamic configuration brigade that's still in review.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Right?
So the last steering committee meeting, we came up with a list of items in incubator that are hatched and don't need to be incubated anymore. So we moved some of them to the core net and 2 of them into apps based on David Bainbridge's feedback. So routing and EVPN, which is a new one, are now moved off into separate apps. Neighbor and interfaces are now primary objects in the core net. Multicast, we wanted to move to an app, but we can't quite do it yet because of the spirit of Ali being in the way. For whatever reason, when multicast was first done, the APIs were put into core and the implementation was put in incubator. So we didn't have license to move things out of core. So what we're going to do is we're going to deprecate the core ones. When that deprecation expires, then we'll move multicast out to an app by itself. But for now, the implementation and the API are at least next to each other.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Love UI, Stephen? Stephen? Or Simon? I see Stephen online.
Yeah, Stephen's online. I'm assuming that he's ready to talk, but he's got a problem with muting.
Shows him as not muted. Simon, can you cover it?
I think so. Okay, so basically we got the tasks listed done and merged, but I think a lot of the time in the sprint was spent with Stephen putting in kind of infrastructure for UI development, including linting of JavaScript code, and code coverage for the JavaScript, and also putting in a development server. Yeah, I just got a Slack message from Stephen. His mic is not working. Anyway, to continue, with ESLint, we were able to fix over 3,000 issues with the JavaScript formatting. So the code base is somewhat cleaner. Then also there was an issue with getting Node Packaging Manager working with Buck, and after several iterations and some help from Thomas and Brian, Stephen was able to complete that. So now the that part of the package and build for UI is working. We have started doing code coverage, and if you were to move to the next slide, you'll see that we actually have some visuals on so we've actually got a dashboard for the code coverage for the JavaScript side of the project. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, a lot of progress has been made in making a good stab at getting code coverage in unit tests for the JavaScript side. Still a ways to go, as you can see from the red and yellow, but this is awesome progress. So thanks, Stephen, for a lot of your hard work there.
Okay. Line Brigade? Okay,
so for the Line Brigade, the burn down chart is not looking too hot. We had one task in here. It was the sprint was lightly loaded because I'm actually doing other stuff as well. But this particular item, which was localization, or rather internationalization of the topology view, has turned out to be quite a lot of work. A lot of it is because where all the display strings come from in the topology view is very varied, both on the client side and the server side. And we've had to do some infrastructure upgrades and enhancements to be able to handle the addition of looking up localization strings and so on. So this is still work in progress, although it's very close to being done. I'm confident that I can get it done in the next few days, hopefully before Monday. We'll see. So that's kind of the report on the work being done here. A reminder in the bottom left corner of the languages that we're covering at the moment. Thank you, community. And then if you look on the next slide, you'll see we have a spreadsheet which is basically keeping track of our localization coverage. So as new localization bundles, or rather as new views are internationalized, i.e. made ready for localization, I'll update this spreadsheet and then put a word out on the Line Brigade Slack channel, and then hopefully the the folks in the community who are doing translating can come in and produce localized bundles for those views. And as we're progressing through a lot of the common bundles, I'm adding new terms and phrases, and so those will need to be updated at some point. But this is kind of how we're tracking it. So there you go. That's the Localization Brigade for now.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Virtualization. Claudine updated this but wasn't able to join, but I think the first item is Jordan's.
Yeah, so they came to me with just some issues with performance with consistent maps. So the first issue is just improving caching and cache consistent maps. And that's about it.
Okay, and I see a few issues waiting to be merged. Not quite sure why those aren't merged yet. And then some items in progress around the virtual gateway. But I assume this means these things are not going to be in this release. Then dynamic configuration. Utah?
So basically, I guess in this sprint, young RPC support is now pretty much in place. And we got parts for dynamic config export side, and also on the response side has been done. And also response has been improving over time. We have patch support and the RPC one we mentioned. And there were several outstanding bugs which are now fixed. One was child node ordering issue, and another was recently reported where the update event sometimes get dropped, and it is now fixed. Also, we currently had a problem that there were too many events sent out on change event, and now we have a mechanism to consolidate that, and we now have a live compilation mechanism where you can feed the yanks to running ONOS, and you compile and come up with a proposal object for you on the fly. I guess there will be a demo at the end. And on the other part, OpenConfig support is still working in progress. There were 5 outstanding issues detected. 2 of them are fixed and are under review, and there's 2 more that's almost done, and one last piece still needs a little bit of investigation. The other thing is the device configuration related stuff. So at least the design has been finally agreed on, so we are now refactoring the existing code so that it will adapt to the new design, and hopefully we'll have something to talk to the device soon. And there will be a webinar with, I guess, OpenConfig folks about supporting OpenConfig in ONOS, I believe. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ta. Northbound?
We have 3 in progress story in Northbound, and one is the non-disrupted intent relocation is still reviewing, but I think it's almost done, right, Yuta? The first one, non-disrupted intent config, is almost done.
Yeah, almost done. We just need to review the updated version and see if it looks okay.
Yeah, because it's very huge patch and impacts a lot of things. And the other 2, okay, so Pierre is starting to implement the meter and bandwidth allocation feature in the intent system. So the other 2 is, I think he's starting reflecting something inside intent system. Yeah, I think that's it.
gRPC?
So I don't think anyone's here from the GRDC Brigade. I know that the bug plugin for gRPC is almost finished. I worked with Aaron this past couple weeks on it, and there's just a few little things, but it should be good to go soon.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Yes, I see the surfing and sound tickers. Build and Package Brigade.
So I don't think Vishwa's here, so I can also do this update. We have a new brigade member, Bharat from Verizon, who's in India. We also are re-welcoming a brigade member who is now able to actually commit time to the brigade, named Venkat. He was part of the brigade initially, but then had to step away for a month or 2. This sprint, what the brigade completed was a community survey on IDE choice, build tools, and documentation. They collected several responses, which they hope to help direct their future work. In progress is the adding STC as part of, this shouldn't say Buck, it should say as part of Jenkins verification. And then adding Eclipse support to Buck, that's also underway. There's one block task, which is problem obsolescence, which is waiting on the GRDC plugin from the GRDC Brigade, as well as the Eclipse support.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I knew that was going to bug someone. P4 Brigade. So lots and lots of stories. What's been done is the BMV2 portion of it. So BMV2 is working with Packet.io. Work is starting on action profiles to get ECMP working. So you'll see in progress work around trying to get the demo scripts working and adding ECMP functionality, as well as trying to get Tofino working with P4 runtime. And then a few items not started, focus on Tofino and the ECMP work, which will continue in the next sprint on master. So some notes around burn down. Here is we have key members on PTO, as well as we're running into some issues with the P4 runtime implementation on the hardware switch. And then ISSU. Jordan?
Yeah, so a lot of the ISSU work had sort of overlap with the platform work. So, I mean, the big goal was to make sure that we could support upgrades on the next release. And so the high priority was part of the work on the NETI protocol was ISSU related, but the most important thing was updating the cluster store to replicate node versions so that nodes can make decisions on the state of the cluster in terms of versions. And so that's done. The upgrade service is still in progress and it'll continue into early next release. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. QA?
For QA, what we have done is we created mastership failover latency task, and we created a cluster class in test-down framework and implemented in all the test cases. And we also updated some of the system test wiki pages, including test plans, results, how to contribute, and test guide. Those are the bigger changes we made in the sprint, and we also did some smaller refactor and fixes for the test, including now we can specify number of neighbors in intentful throughput test, and we investigated func intent results and adjusted the number of retries and split times to func intent test. And we now return failed when test down is forced quit, and we fixed the index error from func BGP last test, and we also did a small refactor of the flow throughput test. The work in progress is we still have some wiki pages to be updated. Okay, and we have QA bug status on the next page. In the sprint, we have 69 bugs resolved and 18 created. We have 187 open bugs in total. So we did a bug scrub this week, and these 10 bugs are the ones we talked about in the scrub meeting. And we marked the first 2 bugs as critical bugs, which needs to be fixed before the release. And for the others, for some of them, we posted comments to those bugs and are still waiting for the responses to decide the priorities. And we will track all the bugs in the next sprint. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've got Loon Sprint 4 coming up. It's a 2+ week sprint. We're going to be doing sprint review on August 30th, and we'll combine it with the release planning. So as part of this sprint, to close it out, we're at feature freeze, which means we're feature complete. I think I heard there were a few exceptions. So we'll talk about when we do the support branch. So if we were to look at this, we'll do sprint 4 planning, which is focused on hardening, bug fixes, documentation. It'll be on Monday. So I'll close the sprints after this meeting and set it up, the new ones in Jira for Monday's planning meeting. And then what we'll want to do is get a support branch created. I think the question I have is, when do we want to do that? The plan would be today. Or are there any exceptions?
Any particular reason you want to do it today?
Or Monday. But I think the plan was to get a support branch, and then all new feature work would be on master.
No, the reason I ask is because I know there are a bunch of things still sitting in Garrett, and
I know.
there's no need to do a bunch of cherry picking, then it's probably better if we don't. That's fine. So maybe wait till I don't know, after the meeting on Monday.
The planning meeting. Do we think they're close enough that it makes a difference?
Well, so what is making the support branch right now do for us? Other than what Ray said, require us to cherry pick a bunch of changes?
I think the question I have would be, are there things we're explicitly waiting to get into this release?
Yes, that's kind of what I was trying to say. There's at least 4 or 5 things sitting in Garrett right now that I know we want. I have to circle back and talk to Saurav and Charles because I know they have a couple things waiting. I think Jordan has something waiting. I just checked something in that I need Jono for. That's why I'm thinking, why snap the branch if we know the first thing we're going to do is have 5 things that have to be cherry picked.
So we have an explicit list of exceptions, but we just don't know what they all are.
I don't know what they all are. I mean, there's, dozens of things sitting in Garrett, so it's hard to know.
I know, but our intent would be to try to freeze, right? So to me, the only reason why we would hold this off is there are critical exceptions.
No, the reason to hold it off is to not do a lot of work for no reason. I don't, like Brian said, it's like, what, if we feel like we gain something, then yeah, we'll do it. But what do we feel that we gain by doing the snap now?
For the critical exceptions that we have, if we were to hold it off until Monday, would they all be in? Or are we going to say on Monday, we'll be in the same situation? I just want to make sure that we're making a conscious decision here.
I cannot answer that question because
I don't think the flow roller store will be done. I mean, John's still testing it. I'm not sure, but I doubt it would be merged on Monday.
The localization of the topology view would be done. I just need another day on that, really.
Yeah, so can I suggest that maybe what we do is we need to make a determination probably by next Wednesday at the latest to so we should aim to flush as much of the critical pieces through code reviews, and then we should make a determination next Wednesday whether or not it's a good time to create a support branch. I know that there will be, some pieces of functionality, like for example, the end tools work will continue fixing some of the defects which are preventing integration of the open or compilation of the open config models, and some side applications will probably continue churn. They're not necessarily critical. So even if they're in some less than perfect state by the time you need to cut the Loon release, I think that's fine. So right now, I think the biggest thing is the elimination of redundant work that would otherwise be created if we were to cut the support branch too early. But we still at the same time need to aim for some sort of a stability, right? Establishing something.
So my only ask is, can we identify exactly what we're waiting on to cut the support branch, or are we saying by Wednesday we will do it?
So I think what we should try to do it, let's say by the end of day Monday, we should try to identify it, because we're not going to be able to do it on the spot now.
Agreed.
And then Wednesday we can make the call. Okay, is that all right?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Do you have a good feel, Thomas, for, I certainly don't. There's got to be, I don't know, 50 things sitting in Garrett. Do you know for sure?
There's over 100 things sitting in Garrett right
wow.
now.
Okay. Do you know?
But the thing is, some of those things are old or they're not going to go in. But I think we should do a sweep through the reviews and at least identify which reviews need to be flushed through, which not. And for that, I think we need at least a day. So that's why I asked for Monday.
Okay. So I know Saurav and Charles have at least 2 things that they need in. I'll try to grab one of those one of those guys after the meeting and find out if those are ready to go. Like I said, I put one in that I need Jono's feedback on. Sounds like Jordan has one he's waiting for John's testing on. Do we want to maybe Monday morning go through the Garrett list together and try to figure out yay or nay?
That's what I was trying to suggest, yes.
Okay, let's do that then.
Okay.
Okay, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, right, we want to make sure that things are stable, and so long as we make sure that we are explicit about the exceptions, I'm fine. I just want to make sure that we are trying to drive towards just more stability.
Yep, complete agreement.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we have a couple of demos. I'm going to stop sharing so folks can do their demos.
All right, can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to do a quick demo of one of the issues that I was working on at the beginning of this sprint. So it was linearizability verification of distributed primitives. So there's this project.
Sorry, hang on. We seem to have lost your share, Jordan. Go back to Jens.
Yeah, we're seeing Yen as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it too.
It should be stopped.
All right. Good. So there's this project called Jepsen, which is a really popular like fault injection and distributed systems verification framework. So basically the way it works is it sets up a cluster, injects partitions and crashes nodes and things and submits operations to a database and then verifies that the output of the database is linearizable or adheres to some consistency model. It's a really popular project. This guy has a blog where he tests lots of databases and things like that. So my idea was that we want to get the type of distributed systems verification of Jepsen, but Jepsen's kind of not well suited to how ONOS's testing is set up. So I wrote some scripts to sort of do the same thing as Jepsen does. And so Jepsen actually comes with some model checkers. So there's this model checker library that that Jepsen uses to verify a history of operations. And so what I did was wrote a script that uses ONOS's applications to submit operations to the cluster, record the output, and run it through the model checker. And it's called, this is it. So it's this ONOS dist verify script. And I'll just run it real quick and show you what it looks like. And so when I run it, what you'll see is this is the same output as Jepsen. You'll see it, basically it has some number of threads. In this case, I think there's like 10 processes that submit operations to ONOS through the distributed primitives test applications. And another thread that messes with the cluster, crashes nodes. You can see a bunch of operations here. Does network partitions, different kinds of network partitions, crashes nodes, delays communications between nodes and things like that. And so when I run it, so that's all it's doing. It has a bunch of processes that are performing operations on an atomic value. So they're doing like atomic check and set operations, recording the output. So it just crashed a node. And then at the end of this, it'll take that output and run it through the linearizable history verifier. script, and it'll say whether the operations were safe, linearizable. Should be done in just a second. I promise. Yeah, so it's probably now running running all the output that it just recorded through the model checker. Yeah, and so it just printed the message history is linearizable, and so we can run this script with different types of scenarios, different types of network partitions and crashes, and verify that consistency guarantees are being held. So that's it. Questions?
This is awesome, Jordan.
Yeah, I had fun doing it. So, and it actually turned out really similar. I mean, I've used Jepsen to test atomics before, and it looks exactly the same. So I think it's pretty good.
That's great. Do you think there would be any value to hook it into the system tests to kind of run a quick verification of all of this as well?
Yeah, John and I have been talking about this for a while, actually. We've been talking about it for a few months, but never really got around to it. But I think that should be the ultimate goal, is to get it integrated with more testing. So
that's great, yeah. Because the more faceted testing you do, the better, right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Who else is presenting?
Thomas, is that you?
Well, I wasn't really intending to do a live demo. I just simply pointed out that there is a recorded demo for the ON.Lab compilation, which, if you wanted to, we could play it here, but it's, or people can watch it on their own time.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, I think we're done. Thanks, everyone. We'll, so the plan would be to do the sprint planning for sprint 4 on Monday. And then let's get through the list of reviews and see what we'll need to get into the current branch. Then we'll cut the support branch and let folks have their new features on master.
Yeah, do you know of, is there anything you're tracking in Jira that you know for sure is going to be in this hardening sprint, or is it kind of stuff that we think is going to come up in QA?
The hardening sprints would focus on just the bug fixes. There were 2 that were identified. So those would be...
I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we know how many there are? Like, is there a set of them that we know of already?
2. And then
One of those is the flow restore,
okay,
which is the patch that I have in review.
All right, so that's pretty good then. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.